You are not afraid of losing people. You are afraid of losing the version of yourself that only existed because of them. That is the thing nobody tells you. When a relationship ends, when a job disappears, when someone you built your entire world around walks out the door, the pain you feel is not just about them. It is about you. It is about the identity you constructed inside that connection, the role you played, the person you believed you were when they were still there. And now that they are gone, you do not know who you are anymore. Harrison here. And I want to be straight with you today because what I am about to share is not the kind of advice you will find in a self-help book or a motivational reel. This is something the Stoic philosophers understood 2,000 years ago. Something that Marcus Aurelius wrote about in his private journal. Something Epictetus taught from the position of a man who had nothing, not even his own freedom, and still chose to be unbreakable. There are 5 rules. 5 psychological shifts that, if you apply them with honesty and discipline, will change the way you experience loss, pressure, and fear forever. Not by making you numb, not by teaching you to suppress what you feel, but by showing you exactly where your power begins and where your suffering ends. One of these rules is going to make you uncomfortable. It should. Because the truth that sets you free rarely feels good the first time you hear it. Stay with me. Let me ask you something that might sting a little. When you lost that person, that relationship, that position, that version of your life, were you grieving them? Or were you grieving the person you were when you had them? Think about that carefully before you answer. Because there is a difference. A massive, life-changing difference. And most people never stop long enough to see it. They spend months, sometimes years, convinced that the pain is about what they lost. The person, the job, the dream. But when you sit in silence, when you get brutally honest with yourself, you realize the wound is not where you thought it was. The wound is in your identity. The wound is in the mirror. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, Book 2, Paragraph 1, that a man should begin every morning by reminding himself that he will encounter ingratitude, arrogance, and betrayal, not to become bitter, but to remain anchored in who he is regardless of what the world throws at him. He was not writing as a philosopher in a quiet room. He was writing as an emperor, surrounded by war, political betrayal, and personal loss, reminding himself every single day that his identity could not be borrowed from his circumstances. That is the first rule, the inverted mirror. You have been looking at the wrong reflection. You have been measuring yourself by the role you played in someone else's life. The devoted partner, the loyal employee, the strong provider, the person who had everything together. And when that role was taken from you or when it simply ended, you did not just lose the relationship, you lost the character you were playing. And now you are standing off stage, in the dark, with no costume and no script, asking yourself who you actually are. Epictetus addressed this directly. He said that people are disturbed not by events but by the opinions they hold about events. And one of the most destructive opinions a person can hold is the belief that their value is inseparable from their role, that they are only worthy when they are needed, that they only exist fully when someone else is watching. That belief is not love. That is dependency wearing the mask of identity. Here is what the Stoics knew that modern psychology is only beginning to catch up to. The self that was built inside a relationship, inside a career, inside a community, is a constructed self. It is real in the sense that you lived it and felt it, but it is not permanent. It was never meant to be permanent. And the pain you feel when it collapses is not evidence that something has been destroyed. It is evidence that something was never truly yours to begin with. This is not cruelty. This is liberation. Because the moment you understand that the version of yourself you are mourning was always temporary, you stop trying to resurrect it. You stop waiting for the other person to come back so you can feel whole again. You stop chasing the old job, the old status, the old routine, because you finally understand that what you are really searching for was never out there. It is in here. It has always been in here. I'm not telling you this as a philosophical exercise. I'm telling you this because I have sat in that exact silence. I have looked at that exact empty mirror And the most important thing I ever did was stop trying to fill it with someone else's reflection. Your identity is not a role. It is not a title. It is not a relationship status. According to Epictetus in Discourses, Book 1, Chapter 1, the only thing that is truly yours is your capacity to choose how you respond. Everything else, the opinions of others, the outcomes of your efforts, the permanence of what you love, is on loan. And the inverted mirror rule demands that you look at yourself without any of those borrowed reflections and ask the only question that matters. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when no one needs you? Who are you when the role has ended and the stage is empty? That person right there is the only one worth building. I need you to hear this next part without getting defensive, because what I am about to say is going to challenge something you have probably been telling yourself for a long time. Something that sounds responsible, mature, even wise. But underneath it, if you are honest, it is none of those things. You have been calling it stability. Marcus Aurelius called it a cage. Comfort is the most socially accepted form of cowardice that exists, and the reason it is so dangerous is precisely because it does not look like cowardice. It looks like intelligence. It looks like patience. It looks like you are being practical, realistic, smart. You stay in the job that drains you because the paycheck is reliable. You stay in the relationship that shrinks you because starting over feels terrifying. You stay in the version of your life that stopped fitting you years ago because the alternative requires you to walk into the unknown, and the unknown is uncomfortable, and you have decided, somewhere deep down, that discomfort is the enemy. But discomfort is not the enemy. Comfort is. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, Book 4, Paragraph 3, that very little is needed to make a happy life, that it is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. He was not romanticizing poverty or hardship. He was pointing at something far more confronting. He was saying that the moment you begin organizing your life around the avoidance of pain, you have already surrendered the only thing that was ever truly yours, your capacity to choose with integrity. Seneca said it even more directly in Letters to Lucilius, Letter 1. He said that we should reckon with time as a miser reckon with money, that most people do not lose their lives. They simply let them leak away, day by day, in the quiet comfort of routines they never consciously chose. That is the cost of comfort. Not dramatic, not sudden. It is slow. It is the accumulated weight of every morning you woke up and chose the familiar over the true. Every conversation you avoided because it might create conflict. Every dream you quietly shelved because pursuing it meant risking failure. And failure is uncomfortable, and comfort told you to wait just a little longer. Now I ask you a question. In all seriousness, how long have you been waiting? Because here is what the Stoics understood about comfort that almost no one talks about. Comfort does not protect you from suffering. It postpones it. And the suffering that arrives after years of chosen comfort is not the clean, sharp pain of a conscious risk that did not work out. It is the dull, corrosive ache of a life that was never fully lived. It is the regret that Seneca described as the cruelest form of self-punishment, because it arrives when there is less time left to correct it. The Stoic path is not about seeking hardship for its own sake. This is not about punishing yourself or choosing struggle as a performance of strength. The Stoic path is about radical honesty, about looking at the choices you are making every day and asking whether they are driven by values or by fear, whether you are building something real or simply maintaining something safe. Epictetus taught in Discourses, Book 2, Chapter 16, that a person who trembles at the prospect of discomfort has already handed their freedom to whoever or whatever controls their comfort. Your employer, your partner, your social circle, the opinion of people whose names you will not even remember in 10 years. You have given them the keys to your life because keeping those keys yourself would mean accepting the weight of real choice. And real choice always carries the possibility of real loss. That possibility is not a threat. That possibility is the proof that you are actually living. Comfort will tell you to stay. Integrity will tell you the truth, and the cost of choosing comfort over integrity, day after day, year after year, is not paid all at once. It is paid in the slow erosion of the person you were always capable of becoming. The version of you that Marcus Aurelius believed was already inside you, Waiting not for the perfect circumstances, but for the courage to stop waiting for them. The question is not whether you can afford to leave the comfort behind. The question is whether you can afford to stay. This is the one that is going to be hard to hear. I know that. And I am going to ask you to stay with me through the discomfort of it. Because this rule is the reason most people fail. Not because they are weak. Not because they lack discipline or desire. But because of something they would never in a million years identify as arrogance. You believe your pain is special. Not consciously. You would never say that out loud. But the way you carry it, the way you return to it, the way you describe it to yourself in the quiet hours of the night, reveals a belief that sits at the very center of your suffering. The belief that what happened to you is uniquely, exceptionally, categorically worse than what other people have endured. That your loss is heavier. That your betrayal cut deeper. That your circumstances are more difficult, more unfair, more devastating than the ordinary human experience of pain. And that belief, that quiet, invisible arrogance, is the single most effective prison ever built. Epictetus was a slave, not metaphorically, not in the modern sense of being trapped by circumstance or obligation. He was the legal property of another human being. He had no rights, no freedom of movement, no control over his own body. His owner at one point broke his leg deliberately, twisting it slowly, while Epictetus calmly warned him that it would break. When it broke, Epictetus simply said, "Did I not tell you so?" And then he continued teaching philosophy from that exact position of absolute physical powerlessness. I'm not telling you this to minimize what you went through. I'm telling you this because Epictetus didn't use your circumstances as a reason to give up. He used them as proof that the only unbreakable thing in a human being is the capacity to choose an answer. And he built an entire philosophy from that single, unshakable truth. In Discourses, Book 1, Chapter 2, Epictetus wrote that it is not death or pain that is to be feared, but the fear of pain and the fear of death. He was pointing at something precise and devastating, that the story we build around our suffering is always more destructive than the suffering itself. The event happens once. The story we tell about the event, the narrative we carry, the identity we construct around our wound, that happens every single day. Every time we replay it. Every time we use it to explain why we cannot move, why we are stuck, why this particular version of life is the only one available to us now. That story is the arrogance, because it places your pain at the center of the universe and asks the universe to stop until it is acknowledged. Marcus Aurelius lost children. He governed an empire while battling a plague that killed millions. He faced betrayal from people he trusted with his life. And in Meditations, Book 5, Paragraph 8, he wrote that a man should not feel distress at things that befall him, but should find the resources to endure them within himself. He was not writing from a place of emotional distance. He was writing from the deepest kind of personal pain. And his conclusion was not that his pain was exceptional. His conclusion was that pain is the universal condition of being human, and that the response to it is always a choice. This is the rule that changes everything. Because the moment you stop treating your suffering as a special case, the moment you step down from the position of the uniquely wounded, something extraordinary happens. You stop waiting for the world to acknowledge how hard your situation is before you are permitted to heal. You stop requiring the person who hurt you to apologize before you are allowed to move forward. You stop holding your pain like a credential that proves how much you loved, how much you gave, how much you deserved better. You simply begin. Not because the pain was not real, it was real. Not because what happened was fair, it was not fair. But because Epictetus, a man who had every objective reason to be destroyed by his circumstances, looked at his broken leg and chose to keep teaching. And if he could do that, then the only honest question left is what exactly you are waiting for. The arrogance of suffering is not a character flaw. It is a human reflex, but it is one the Stoics identified with precision and confronted without mercy. Because they understood that as long as you believe your pain deserves a category of its own, you will never fully inhabit the only moment where healing is actually possible. This one. Right now. You live in the loudest era in human history, and I do not mean the noise outside. I mean the noise inside. The constant, relentless, exhausting stream of thought that runs from the moment you open your eyes in the morning to the moment you finally surrender to sleep at night. The replaying of conversations, the rehearsing of arguments, the scrolling, the comparing, the planning, the worrying, the second-guessing. The mind that never, not even for a moment, stops performing. And here is what nobody is telling you about that noise. It is not productivity. It is not processing. It is not you working through your problems. It is you running from the one thing that could actually solve them. Silence. Seneca called it otium. And before you translate that as leisure or rest and dismiss it as something you will get to eventually, when life slows down, when the kids are older, when work gets easier, when things settle, understand what Seneca actually meant. He was not describing a vacation. He was not describing the absence of responsibility. He was describing a deliberate, disciplined daily practice of withdrawing the mind from the chaos of external demands and returning it to itself. A practice he considered not a luxury, but a survival tool. The sharpest weapon a thinking person could carry. In Letters to Lucilius, Letter 8, Seneca wrote that he was not withdrawing from people out of hatred, but out of necessity. That the mind cannot grow while it is constantly being pulled outward. That wisdom requires the kind of quiet that the world will never voluntarily give you. You have to take it. You have to protect it. You have to treat it with the same seriousness that you treat your most important obligations, because it is more important than all of them combined. I want you to think about this for a moment, because I know what your first instinct is. Your first instinct is to say that you do not have time for silence, that your life is too full, too demanding, too complicated for the kind of stillness Seneca is describing. And I want you to notice something about that instinct. It is the same instinct that keeps you exhausted. It is the same instinct that keeps you reactive instead of intentional. It is the same instinct that has you making decisions from a place of noise and calling it clarity. The mind that never rests never heals. And the mind that never heals keeps making the same choices, running the same patterns, attracting the same outcomes, and then wondering why nothing changes. Marcus Aurelius understood this at the level of daily practice. In Meditations, Book 4, Paragraph 3, he wrote that people seek retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea and the hills, and that he himself desired nothing more than that. But then he said something that cuts through every excuse you have ever made for avoiding stillness. He said that such retreats are altogether the mark of a common person, because at any moment you choose, you can retire into yourself. No place is more peaceful, more free from disturbance than your own soul. Your own soul. Not a weekend away. Not a meditation retreat you have been meaning to book. Not the silence that arrives after everything in your life finally calms down. The silence that is available right now, in this moment, if you are willing to stop filling it. This is where the discipline comes in. Because silence is uncomfortable at first. When you stop the noise, what rushes in is everything you have been avoiding. The grief you have not fully felt. The decisions you have been postponing. The truths about yourself that the busyness has been mercifully drowning out. And most people, the moment that discomfort arrives, reach immediately for their phone, their music, their next task, their next conversation, anything to avoid sitting with what the silence reveals. But Seneca was precise about this in Letters to Lucilius, Letter 27. He wrote that the mind must be given relaxation. It will rise improved and sharper after a good break. Just as rich fields must not be forced, for uninterrupted productivity will quickly exhaust them, so constant effort will sap our mental vigor. Rest is not the opposite of discipline. Rest is where discipline is rebuilt. The Stoics did not meditate in the modern passive sense of the word. They practiced active inner silence. The deliberate turning of attention inward to examine what is actually present, what you are actually feeling, what you are actually choosing, what is actually within your control right now, in this specific moment, and what is not. That examination requires quiet. It cannot happen in the middle of noise, and it cannot be postponed indefinitely without a cost. The cost is exactly what you have already been paying. The exhaustion that sleep does not fix. The anxiety that achievement does not cure. the restlessness that follows you into every new circumstance, because it was never about the circumstance. It was always about the noise you refused to stop long enough to examine. Seneca's odium is not passive. It is the most active thing you will ever do, because it requires you to sit with yourself, completely, without distraction or performance, and face exactly what is there. That takes more courage than any external challenge you will ever encounter, and it produces something that no external achievement ever will: a mind that knows itself. And a mind that knows itself cannot be manipulated, cannot be paralyzed, and cannot be taken from you by anyone or anything in this world. I want you to think about the last time you were genuinely, completely present, not half present while checking your phone, not physically in the room while mentally rehearsing a conversation that has not happened yet. Truly present, fully inside the moment you were living. When was that? For most people, the honest answer is that they cannot remember, and that is not an accident. That is the direct consequence of living as though time is infinite, as though there will always be another conversation, another opportunity, another version of this moment available to you somewhere down the road, as though the people in front of you will always be there. As though you will always be there, you will not, and neither will they. The Stoics called this memento mori. Remember that you will die. And before your mind translates that into something morbid, something dark, something that belongs in a philosophy classroom, rather than in your actual life, I need you to understand what the Stoics actually meant when they said it, because they were not inviting you into despair. They were handing you the only compass that never lies. Marcus Aurelius returned to this principle more than any other in his private writings. In Meditations, Book 2, paragraph 14, he wrote that even if you were to live 3,000 years, or 30,000, you could not lose any other life than the one you are living now. That the longest life and the shortest life both end at the same place. And that the present moment is the only thing any human being has ever actually possessed. That is not pessimism. That is the most clarifying truth ever written. I'll be straight with you now. The reason you tolerate things that don't do you any good is because you believe you'll have time to deal with them later. The reason you postpone the conversation that needs to happen is because you assume there will be a better time for it. The reason you stay in situations that diminish you, in relationships that drain you, in habits that silently destroy your health and concentration, is because the cost of change seems immediate and the cost of staying seems distant. And as long as you believe you have unlimited time, this calculation will never force you to change. Not by making you reckless, not by convincing you to burn everything down and start over without thought, but by making the trivial impossible to take seriously and the essential impossible to ignore. When you genuinely internalize the fact that this conversation, this day, this version of the people you love is not guaranteed to exist tomorrow, the things that were consuming your attention an hour ago lose their grip completely. The argument that felt urgent becomes irrelevant. The grudge that felt justified becomes exhausting to maintain. The fear that felt paralyzing becomes a small thing next to the much larger fear of arriving at the end of your life and realizing you spent it managing minor discomforts instead of building something real. Seneca addressed this with a precision that still cuts after 2,000 years. In Letters to Lucilius, Letter 77, he wrote that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. That life is long enough and has been given in sufficiently generous measure to allow the accomplishment of the very greatest things, if the whole of it is well invested. The problem is never the length of the life. The problem is always the quality of the attention brought to it. Death as a compass does not mean thinking about death constantly. It means using the awareness of mortality as a filter for every decision you make. Before you spend another month in a situation that is costing you your integrity, your health, or your sense of self, ask the question that memento mori demands. If this were the last version of your life available to you, would you choose this? If the answer is no, then you already know what needs to change. And the only remaining question is whether you are going to let the illusion of infinite time keep you from changing it. Epictetus taught in Discourses, Book 2, Chapter 5, that you should never say about anything that you have lost it, but only that you have returned it. The child has been returned, the wife has been returned, the property has been returned. Because nothing was ever yours in the absolute sense. It was given to you for a season, for a purpose, for a particular chapter of a story that was always moving toward its conclusion. That is not a reason to grieve everything in advance. That is a reason to be fully, completely, irreversibly present for every single moment while it is still yours to inhabit. To look at the people you love and actually see them. To do the work that matters and actually feel it. To live the values you claim to hold and actually build something with them. Not someday, not when the conditions are perfect, but now, in this moment, with exactly what you have. Because this moment is not a rehearsal. It never was, and the person who understands that, the person who lets that truth land all the way to the bone, does not need to be motivated, does not need to be reminded, does not need to be pushed. That person is already moving, and that person, from this moment forward, is you. 5 rules. 1 truth underneath all of them. You are not at the mercy of what happens to you. You never were. The Stoics did not build this philosophy in comfort. They built it inside war, slavery, loss, and the full weight of human suffering. And what they found, every single one of them, was that the only unconquerable thing in a human being is the decision to respond with intention. That decision is yours right now. Not tomorrow. Not after things settle. Right now, in this exact moment, with this exact life. If something in this video broke something open in you, I want to know. Tell me in the comments which rule hit you the hardest, because that is the one you need to work with first. And if you are ready to keep building this kind of mind, the kind that nothing and no one can take from you, then stay close. What comes next will go even deeper.